Hey guys, if you're looking for help with your Amazon business in terms of troubleshooting or strategy, visit sellersessions.com/consultancy or drop me a message to danny@sellersessions.com. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Again, I bring back Chris McCabe. Hey Chris, how you doing?
Always a pleasure, Danny. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. So today, let's talk about one interesting thing that's come up. There's a couple of things we'll talk about, but the main thing is in and around dropshippers. What's been interesting for you is obviously you've had some people come to you because the ballpark's changed slightly with dropshippers, even though it's not against terms of service.
I think a lot of brands figured out that people are drop shipping their products. I mean,
Yeah.
It could be small brands, big brands, doesn't matter anymore. They may suspect that if you're drop shipping, you don't have invoices or documentation to show for those listings unless you sell it, right? You don't have an invoice generated until you sell something, until there's an order. And they know that. And so they complain about inauthentic items. And if you're using a drop shipping model where you have no documentation until there's a sale, no matter what the drop shipping policy might say, enforcement tactics by product quality teams are you can be suspended if you can't demonstrate proper supply chain documentation for any of the items you're selling on the site.
So when they get this notification, basically, does that fall under the paperwork required for inauthentic? Yeah.
You know, people are now suspended. I mean, for the last 6 months, I think it's been people are getting it suspended for inauthentic without a buyer complaint of inauthentic or not the same quality or not as described. That's what used to be the standard for a suspension. You had to have a brand doing a test buy from you and complaining it's counterfeit or complaining about an intellectual property infringement, or you had to have a buyer complain this is not as advertised. This is not
as advertised, or my face is swollen up, etc.
Right. Anything like that. So now, I mean, as of summer, I think it was that they just started suspending accounts saying, we're happy to reinstate you, but you need invoices and you need information on the supplier that we can verify. And
which, of course, they can't provide in any shape or form.
Yeah, it's been 3 months of, I would say, daily or every other day hearing from drop shippers. I mean, I'm getting it in email and calls and so forth. People saying, I don't have any invoices to show them. They keep bugging me about invoices to get my account back. What do I do? Yeah. And to me, there's only one approach, which is to say, well, your business model doesn't work on Amazon anymore. It doesn't matter to them how long you've been doing it. Some of them showed me their appeals and things, and I read through kind of the seller psychology of, you know, the typical drop shipper response. Most of it said, I've been doing this for years. You're suspending me for things I haven't sold yet. None of that's relevant. None of that matters to them. Yeah. If you can't prove authenticity, they don't want you even listing items. Forget about what you've sold or not. It's bleeding into the infringement stuff as well.
So basically they're running a business with no inventory because they expect you to do that yourself. Who they go and take it from the brands, as we know. And they're utilizing places like Walmart, eBay, etc. But you've also got the ones that are on Amazon listings. Because let's just break this out slightly. This is going to change the subject slightly, but something that I was privy to the other day. So when people are drop shipping on Amazon, obviously they're listing on your listing at a higher price, so that when you go out of stock, they'll take advantage of that. They'll sell that product, and then they'll drop ship that to them within 5 to 7 days, and then try and blag them over email to say, sorry about the delay, it's going to be another week or so, because they're waiting for you to come back in stock to buy your product. Now, a lot of this stuff is done on software, but one of the key things I looked at the other day is that you can look through different lenses. So I just see that players, there's people that these just launched listings and they've got thousands of products that are 3 times the price, and they're using software to do this. And then basically the numbers work on scale. So if you're foolish enough to buy something 3 times the price, they will sell it to you, and the delivery time will take a few weeks. But that's not the only advantage as well. The reason why people do this is because very much like listing against products is that you get the session data as well. So these guys are actually using it as a tool to see whether they want to sell that product. So rather than using, say, a Jungle Scout or whatever, they're trying to extrapolate the information that Amazon provides them into their Seller Central account to determine, well, does this get enough sessions? Is it worth looking into selling this product and doing my own version. So basically, it's another way of catching on to Amazon data. So the guys that you're dealing with here, are they having any appeals overturned or anything, or it's just one of those things like they are now taking out the game? So you can drop ship, however, it all falls over the moment you ask for paperwork.
It's a short-term strategy or you have to change your definition of what drop shipping, further clarify what you mean by drop shipping.
Yeah.
Drop shipping in this instance, this application or this definition of it is not a sustainable business model anymore. Yeah. Based on how product quality is suspending accounts. They're not just asking you for invoices in advance of a suspension, although I have seen that too in the pre-POA, those situations where they say you will be suspended if you can't give us invoices or a POA for these ASINs and explain authenticity concerns away. Yeah. They still do that, but most of them are just being suspended outright at this point, pending receipt of those documents and invoices and proof of a legitimate supply chain. It's not just the invoices. If you don't have a link to a supplier, this is why I'm telling all the drop shippers suspended for this to pack their POA full of references to wholesaler relationships. You can still be a reseller, but change the nature of your reselling. At least explain to Amazon how you're changing the nature of it, because otherwise, what do you put in that plan of action that's in any way credible or convincing and motivates them to reinstate you? Because if you come back with what I've been seeing people send, which obviously they're hiring me because they've tried to appeal and they're not getting anywhere, they're not getting any traction, they're stuck in the mud saying, we never sold these items, what are you talking about? We don't have invoices, we're drop shippers, any of the things that we mentioned, right? So brands are obviously hip to this business model. They're hip to Amazon's enforcement techniques. If they don't like the pricing,
I'm sure brands are happy as well, because in brands' eyes, for a better word for it, is that they see drop shippers as bottom feeders, basically, aren't they? They're trying to sell their products. They're not putting any skin on the game. They want to leverage your brand, take your product, and then sell it to make a profit. Right. When it's not always that easy for sellers to make a living on Amazon as it is. So I'm sure that most brands are rejoicing because that just reduces some of the drama on the marketplace.
In general, Amazon is getting brand friendlier and reseller agitated as time goes on. And it's a tighter and tighter vice, and they're squeezing people in terms of what can you sell. If brands complain, what Amazon's willing to do about it. If you're kind of floating out there in dropshipper or reseller land and you're not adapting or making any changes or not even aware of some of these things going on, people like me come into the conversation and say, where have you been? Why aren't you following any of this? Not everyone can consume a podcast like this every day. I understand, business is busy by its definition, but at the same time, you have to kind of have some idea of what's going on in terms of product quality teams, and now the infringement suspensions are off the chart common. Brands understand that they can weaponize these kinds of tools without having Amazon write back and say, this is anti-competitive behavior. You're trying to control distribution. You're trying to control pricing. Maybe in the court system, you can argue that should be going on. But that's if you take Amazon to court or you take that brand to court, which most of you aren't going to do. Yeah. So a practical strategy instead is to figure out how you can pivot away from this model of drop shipping towards at least a wholesaler relationship that can be verified by Amazon investigators.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Cool. So let's talk IP claims. You've been getting a lot of these recently as well, haven't you?
Same kind of thing where really there's a process Amazon sets up. They don't mediate legal disputes, so all the brand or the other submitting party has to do is name the nature of the infringement, name the ASIN, and submit it. And then Amazon meets its minimum legal standard and obligation to take action to warn the reseller of that brand. And of course, all the people stuck in suspensions are getting the same message over and over. You haven't sent us a proper plan of action, of course, but also we don't have any evidence that the brands have retracted these infringements against you. Now, if you can dispute the notice claim and dispute it effectively, you might not need to get the retraction from the brand, right? Especially if there's no validity to it, and you can convince Amazon that it's an unsubstantiated notice claim or it's simply a false infringement claim that wasn't even submitted from the brand. Of course, those you can dispute. But if it's a valid infringement and you can't get the retraction, tons of people are stuck, trying to get they say they have 8 out of 10 retracted, and then Amazon just keeps bugging them about the 2 that they haven't resolved. Yeah. Days are going by, Black Friday's coming up. I mean, it's just become a nasty month, a nasty situation where I'm hearing from dozens of these people a week. So,
yeah. So, quick one for you. We briefly spoke about it off call. Yeah. I know someone who has Amazon selling on his listing, but selling as his product, and now he's on his second test buy. Both of them have been fake goods in plain packaging somewhere out of San Diego or wherever it was. So in this case, in this scenario, would you get him to submit a claimant against Amazon for inauthentic?
So it's being sold through vendor?
It seems that way, yeah. So he's had someone selling on his list, Amazon selling on his listing.
Right.
They appeared there just a while ago, a few weeks ago. He's wrote up a timeline to it, the usual stuff, captive team, speaking to the frontline people, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. Then he's done a test buy, it turns up in a brown paper bag, not his product.
Right. I mean, there's been it's a big topic. There's been a lot of recent conversation about what the heck's going on with vendor central accounts.
Yeah.
Usually.
Well, that'll be a topic for another day. We can go into that.
But you can submit an infringement and get Amazon to stop selling your product from wherever they're selling it, wherever they're sourcing it.
Yeah. So basically, that they can get that shut down. Because the irony is that if it's sold by Amazon,
make sure you do a test buy.
He's done 2.
Okay.
He's on his second one. They've already taken it down, and then it's appeared back on the listing again.
Interesting. Okay.
So very interesting that you literally, as a seller, you have to serve a claim against Amazon for selling a fake good of another seller on the platform.
They don't necessarily have the same procedures in place or the same quality of investigation in terms of their vendor relationships. Some of the vendors they take on or reach out to are going to be people who have bad product, and they have to be knocked off. If Amazon's selling a bad version of your product, naturally you have to take some action on it. So they typically do drop off those listings, though. They don't fight you on those; they go down pretty quick. So
makes sense. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Just I'm still seeing a lot of obvious errors and mistakes sellers are making in terms of, in Q4, you're not going to resolve anything quickly. It takes longer for Amazon teams to respond, but people sending in these generic templates that they copied and pasted from forums or some group, those are just thrown out. I'm not sure how often. Maybe that works 1 out of 100 times, so maybe it's worth it to some people, but tons of people are just not answering notifications because they're too busy, and I don't think they realize that they just inch closer and closer to being manually reviewed when they ignore things and just hope they'll go away, whether it's a policy violation or an infringement claim or a safety complaint. I'm not sure why people aren't actually countering those or responding in some way with real correspondence that addresses the problem with POA style language. Just don't let your guard down. If you get warned for misused variations, figure out what you're doing wrong. Don't just assume you know how to fix it, take a stab at it, and then go back to whatever you were doing to sell more stuff. This isn't the time of year to screw around. So, and
obviously we won't go into it, but there's a lot of Mickey Mouse consultants out there who see this field as a desirable field to get into, but don't have the skill set for it. So make sure whoever you take on as a consultant, ask the right questions. Ask them what their track record is.
Some questions. Don't just do some Google search and call it good. Ask them something about who they are.
What they've done, what they've achieved, what's their speciality, and that kind of stuff.
Well, not just your success rate, reinstatement rate, and all this stuff, because how many people, if you Google, say they have 100% reinstatement rate?
Yeah, we know that's, look, not being funny, I don't know the exact numbers, but we all know that no one's got a 100% rate. It's bullshit.
It's just, but I expect people to market themselves with false advertising. What I don't expect is sellers to be gullible and believe all the stuff they're told in a quickie online search. If you're in that much of a hurry to hire a suspension consultant, then admit to yourself that you're willing to play fast and loose with your Amazon business, and admit to yourself that you have no real concept of risk. Because if you throw away a couple of good chances at an appeal, I mean, I see so many cases that don't look that difficult to me. But if you send in terrible POAs and you, just make no effort to put a solid attempt in, Amazon's not going to take you seriously, and I honestly don't think they should. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. How can people reach you? Anyway, that wasn't the plug to use your services, but I'm just saying,
no, you don't have to.
Be vigilant is what I'm saying.
I'm never going to plug like that. I would say ask me questions too, even though I used to work on, a lot of people contact me, they did no research into my background. They have no idea I used to work at Amazon. They know nothing about my work for seller performance. And that just tells me you haven't done your homework. So it has nothing to do with hiring me at that point. It's like, why aren't you doing your homework? Can't you take 5, 10, 15 minutes to call somebody, ask them some basic questions before you hand them thousands of dollars? It's something I don't understand, maybe because I'm coming into business from another angle. But I can be reached at my email address, which is Chris, CHRIS, @ecommercechris.com. And of course, the website's ecommercechris.com. So I've got a contact form on there. And I'm 7 days a week until December 31st. So I'm not hard to find.
Cool. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Chris, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.